Hey people, if you're watching this, that's because you want a little extra help with your end of unit final project. So we're going to go over a couple different things that will help you be successful with your final project. The good news is if you did your research and you did writing formative number 2, you're actually almost completely done with the hard work of this project. And now it's all about just organizing it into a presentation. So if you're caught up with those older assignments, this should be a pretty easy week for you. If you're not caught up with your older assignments, you are going to need to do the research project and the essay about the excerpts from the books. If you need help with that, email me right away so that I can help you find it. They are if you click the unit calendar button on the class website, you'll be able to see the old assignments and you'll be able to see which materials you can use to help you through those assignments. So go back and do those if that's the case for you. But if you're ready, let's get started looking at our materials. So if you click on this link here, which probably you already did, that's the wrong document. Okay, it should open up this document. I'll fix that link. So here you have the prompt and you have the rubric. If you look at the top, the skills that you're going to be using are the same skills you've used all quarter. The only change is this last part, make strategic use of digital media in presentations, because you're making a presentation. So basically, if you already are earning mastery scores on these 3, then you are good to go. You'll have the exact right information for this project. So our prompt. Cultural norms are rules of conduct that materialize based on the values within a culture, and people learn such norms through their interactions with others. Shared cultural norms provide a community with a sense of safety through common understanding and expectations. Because some communities may be made up of people of various cultures, individuals may not always share the same values and norms, thus leading to confusion and possibly chaos. Just as norms develop over time, they also tend to shift and change over time. Oh, did you miss that? Okay. Using the pieces of literature studied in class, identify a cultural norm and examine how that norm has shifted over time. Okay, so if you think back to the writing formative that you did, you already did this. You picked a cultural norm. You did the research. You wrote a little bit about it, and then you did the essay where you analyze that norm. So this is just reminding you of that piece you've already done. Using the pieces of literature, identify a cultural norm and examine how that norm has shifted over time. In a visual presentation, explain this shift by comparing the presentation of the norm in multiple works and present-day society. Be sure to integrate diverse media to enhance the understanding of your audience. So if we were working on this together, we would right now in front of us have our research, that chart that you made as well as the writing you did about it, and we would have our essays and all of our notes about those excerpts from literature. So if you get all that stuff together, you'll have all the materials you need. Let's take a look at our rubric now, because essentially, you're just taking the things you've learned through this whole process and you're formatting it into a presentation that would help teach someone else what you've learned through this process. So this rubric is some of these things you're going to have already done, and you're just going to need to pull them from your writing and include them in the presentation. Some of it is new, and so you're going to have to draw some new conclusions or write a new reflection. And then incorporate some images, graphs, videos, that type of thing to help enhance the message that you're going to be sharing. So you're making a PowerPoint or another digital presentation that's going to answer this part of the prompt here. So our rubric, I'm going to go over this middle part because this is mastery. If you're aiming for above mastery, the descriptions are here. If you have questions about those, just let me know. I'm happy to help. But because mastery is what we're aiming for, here's what I'm going to explain. So first, I explained how the evidence from the text represents the cultural norm. So this is what you'll pull from your essay because you need to show how the literature talked about the cultural norm. Then, down here, I explained both authors' use of history. I interpreted why authors write. Okay, you did that in your essay. It needs to appear in your presentation. Next, W9, the writing skills. You chose evidence from your research, you chose evidence from the text, and you included your own experience. So these two, the top two, you've already done those. Those should have been in your essay. So you should be able to pull those and use them for your presentation. This last bullet point is something new. So I'll show you where this will go, but you're going to include your own experience with the norm, the way you're experiencing it in the United States now. Okay, our last two skills are make strategic use of digital media and presentations to enhance understanding of findings, reasoning, and evidence, and to add interest. So you're taking a lot of the writing and the evidence and the information from your research and your essay, right? And that's going to be the basis of your presentation. In order to make your presentation a great presentation, you are going to use two different types of media to enhance it. That means you're going to find video, images, graphs, photos, anything that you can that's going to help your audience really understand what you found, what your reasoning is behind your ideas, your evidence, and to make your presentation more interesting. So the types of media have a really specific purpose, and it's right here. It's not putting a GIF or like a meme in it to make it funny. That's not the purpose, right? The purpose is to make sure you're using that media to enhance the information that you are including in your presentation. So if you're talking about a marriage ceremony, what kind of media could you include to help your audience understand more about that marriage ceremony? Or if you're doing feuds, what could you include? What kind of tools or representations do you know about maybe from your history class that could help explain feuds and the way they work? So you can be super creative with this piece because it's totally up to you. And then this final piece is using MLA. The reason you need to use MLA format is because you do need to have a works cited page. We did this for our first research project, so if you want to see an example, go back to that. You can also use the Purdue OWL website to see an example of a works cited page, and there'll be a link for that in our PowerPoint presentation. All right, so now you know what you need to make, which is a presentation. There are lots of different tools for that, but you can definitely make a PowerPoint presentation, you can make a Google Slides presentation, or you can try some other online presentation tools. That's totally fine with me as long as you're meeting all the criteria. I also have to be able to access it, so just as you make that plan, make sure it's something that you know how to submit to Blackboard that you know I can then get into. Feel free to talk to me about that if there's other stuff you're curious about. All right, so we have our prompt and our rubric. The last item that I think will be helpful to you is on this slide. So it's right after the slide you just clicked this link from. You have the presentation outline. This is an outline of what your presentation needs to include. So your first slide would be a title, then you'll introduce the norm, you'll introduce the history of the norm and culture. You would have at least a piece of evidence on here with an explanation and elaboration. If it's the history of the norm, you're probably looking at pulling information from your research because this is from all time. Then you're going to include norm from the first work. So for example, if you did the excerpt from The Namesake, let's say, then here you would be explaining the history of the norm in Indian American culture because the work is The Namesake, which is an Indian American, which is written by an Indian American author. So for this one, you're explaining in Indian American culture what's the history of the norm, right? So these two are connected in that way. Then you're doing the history of norm and culture from your literature number 2. So let's say your second work that you chose was House on Mango Street. So then you're going to look at in Mexican American culture, in Latinx, in the research you did on Latinx culture, what is the history of that norm? Then how does House on Mango Street talk about that norm? The next slide, Norm in America Now. This is that part of the rubric that I pointed out earlier that you didn't already write, where you include your own experience. So what's your experience of it? You don't need evidence. It's just your personal experience. Then the last slide is a so what. You get to decide, but you're bringing this information to an interesting conclusion that shows how you thought about the norm. What's the importance of culture and traditions around the globe? And then finally, you have a works cited page. If you need help with the works cited page, you can go to Purdue OWL. That's the MLA format website we used. It gives a great guide and examples and step-by-step directions for how to do your works cited. Just instead of doing it on a document like we did for our research paper, you would just do it on the last slide of your presentation. All right, so I know this is a pretty long explanation, but I wanted to try to say as much as I possibly could to help you out. If you have questions, let me know. Your due date is Friday. Those of you who are taking the AP exam, I know you may need to shift your due dates. That's fine. Just keep in touch if there's anything you need me to know or anything you need help with. All right, guys, good luck. This should be a pretty smooth last assignment for us. So if you start to feel like it's really confusing, it shouldn't feel like that. So contact me, let me know you're confused so that I can help you, because I want everyone to do as well as they possibly can. Okay, good luck. Talk to me if you need anything, and I'll see you guys later.